Content warning for this book. This book contains a depiction of sexual assault. We will not be discussing it in this video. Thank you for watching.
Where the Crawdads Sing is a coming-of-age story as well as a murder mystery. It talks about class disparity, it talks about abandonment, and like the last book, it talks about being able to rise up above the expectations that others have of you. Our protagonist, named Kaya, she lives in the crazy backwaters of marshland in North Carolina. By the age of 9, she is abandoned by both of her parents and all 3 of her older siblings. She has to be able to raise herself. As she grows up, she's able to become more and more familiar and studious. By the end of the book, she actually writes several different textbooks, anthologies of just like a whole one just for the birds, a whole one just for the insects, a whole, etc. You know, she's an expert on this. But despite all of her accomplishments, the people in the nearby town never see her as anything more than just the marsh girl. Kaya starts getting familiar with the town's golden boy named Chase. Like, he's from a nice family, he is a high school football team, the whole shebang. And he speaks to her of like love and marriage and commitment, and she's super into it, but she eventually finds out that he's actually engaged to a girl in town, that him getting with Kaya was nothing but like a checklist, a bragging right. While all of this is going on, while we see the entire timeline of her growing up from a child into a young adult, we keep getting glimpses into the present day where there are detectives looking into the mysterious murder, death, they don't really know, of Chase. They want to pin it all on Kaya, but there isn't even any evidence that a crime was committed. There's no footprints, there's no fingerprints. It all just looks like a bad accident, but they're sure it was murder. However, there is a good amount of witnesses and sort of circumstantial evidence to tie Kaya to the case. And then when a witness reports Chase's attack on Kaya just a few weeks before his death, the detectives finally have a motive and they arrest her. At this point, the 2 timelines have converged and we're just fully into courtroom drama, and I realized, okay, I kind of dig this genre. So in the courtroom we hear testimonies, we get to look at all of the evidence laid out, and then finally the verdict. So fun fact about me, when I'm reading, I turn to the new page, my eye goes here, and then I actually read it. I skim over the whole thing before actually reading it. I don't know why I do it, but it's weird. But when we get to the part with the verdict, they read the verdict on the next page, so I turn the page, and I have to actively force myself to not skim, to just read it all the way down, and it legitimately, it hurt my brain to do that. But she's not guilty! Hooray! That's good! She moves back out to her little old shack in the marshes. She buys hundreds of acres surrounding her shack so she's able to preserve the marshes from being developed, and she ends up living to 64 and dying in her boat surrounded by the nature she loves so much. But after the fact, we find out that under the floorboards in her house is a poem that she wrote that basically confessed to the murder, as well as a piece of evidence that 100% ties her to the case. Hi, gooey boy. I'm doing a video right now. Can I talk to you later? Yep. Kaya killed Chase after he attacked her. Hashtag feminism. So, let's give some opinions. The way that Kaya acted around other people, and especially in large crowds, is very indicative of her upbringing. To better explain that, I'm gonna give an excerpt from this Tumblr post that I kept thinking of as I was reading the book. If you genuinely enjoy being alone, do you ever wonder if it is an inherent part of your character, or if it stems from feeling inescapably lonely in the first place until you taught yourself to enjoy the peace and happiness one could find in solitude? I wonder how to differentiate an ingrained love of solitude from an acquired ability to thrive off unchosen loneliness, to learn from it and be nourished by it, to what extent it might be a form of contentment built on the bedrock of resignation. For a while, as I was reading, I couldn't help but think, why can't you just talk to someone? So many problems that people have in life could be taken care of if they just talk to the person that they're having a problem with. But then I realized, oh, she doesn't have anyone. She has been completely alone from the time she was 9. And then she tried to connect with Chase, and he was just messing with her the whole time. It's no wonder she just feels completely abandoned by everyone around her. Delia Owens, this girl knows how to write. It is just ripe with imagery. Just I could feel the heat of the marshes. I could breathe in the humidity. Maybe it's just because I'm familiar with that heat and humidity growing up in rural North Carolina, but it was so real. I could feel it coming off the page, the way she used her words. This was the first book in a while that when I was finished, I closed the book and I just sat there and I was like, I'm here. This is my life. I'm sure there's like some German word for it. They have a word for everything else. Why don't they have a word for this? Did I like this? Yes, very much. I really enjoyed reading it. But would I read this again? Maybe. I feel like with a lot of these like mystery thriller type books, you only get to read it for the first time once. You know, maybe I would reread it just for the sake of like finding the foreshadowing. I'm never gonna unknow she actually killed him. That's just the truth of the matter. Alright, next book. I actually recorded me pulling out the next book earlier, like when I already finished reading the book, and I just wanted to get the next one going. So here's that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pick it now. Handy dandy. We're gonna be reading Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. There it is. Gillian Flynn. My bad. I haven't read it. I haven't watched the movie. I know more or less what happens. But yeah, let's do this. Okay, bye.